There is a secret deity that has been whispered through the corridors of ancient temples, encoded in forgotten manuscripts, and practiced by the world's most powerful men throughout history. It is a secret so profound that modern society has done everything in its power to bury it beneath layers of instant gratification, endless stimulation, and the worship of the fleeting moment. This secret concerns the most powerful force that exists within you, a force so potent that when properly understood and directed, it can transform every dimension of your existence. Napoleon Hill called it the mystery of sex transmutation. The ancients called it the serpent fire. Today, most men live their entire lives never knowing they possess this atomic power, this divine flame that burns within their loins, waiting to be channeled into greatness or dissipated into nothingness. The question that should haunt you tonight, the question that should disturb your comfortable sleep, is this: what are you doing with the most powerful creative force in your possession? Are you the master or are you the slave? Look around you at the world we have built, a civilization that has weaponized your desire against you. Every advertisement, every screen, every carefully engineered algorithm has been designed to keep you locked in an endless cycle of arousal and release. Arousal and release, like a laboratory rat pressing a lever for the next hit of dopamine. They have convinced you that sexual energy exists only to be spent, that desire exists only to be satisfied immediately, that your primal impulses are meant to be indulged without question or restraint. This is the great lie of our age. They have taken the rocket fuel that could propel you to the stars and convince you to burn it in meaningless explosions that leave you depleted, foggy, directionless, and weak. But what if I told you that every time you surrender to that impulse, every time you reach for that easy release, you are not just losing a few moments of pleasure, you are emerging life force itself? You are draining the very essence that could be fueling your ambition, sharpening your mind, magnetizing your presence, and manifesting your deepest desires into reality. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying the 500 most successful men of his era, titans of industry, visionaries, leaders who shaped the world according to their will. And in his most controversial chapter, the one that publishers wanted to remove, the one that made readers uncomfortable, he revealed something extraordinary. Every single one of these men, without exception, had learned the art of sexual transmutation. They had discovered that sexual energy is not merely a biological urge to be satisfied, but creative energy in its most concentrated and powerful form. When this energy is allowed to rise rather than spill, when it is consciously redirected through the channels of focused thought and purposeful action, it becomes the invisible force behind genius, wealth, charisma, and achievement. These men did not become powerful despite their sexual energy. They became powerful because they learned to transmute it. But let us be clear about what transmutation means, because this is not about repression, denial, or the cold suppression of your nature. The warrior does not deny the existence of his sword. He learns to wield it with precision. The alchemist does not reject the base metal, he transforms it into gold. Transmutation is the ancient art of taking the raw, primal, biological fire that burns within you and channeling it upward, directing it through your creative centers, your intellectual faculties, your will to power. It is the difference between being a slave to your impulses and being the conscious architect of your destiny. It is the difference between living as a reactive animal and ascending as a sovereign being. Now, imagine for a moment that you have made a decision. You have chosen to walk the path that few men have the courage to walk. You have decided to retain, to preserve, to transmute this sacred energy rather than waste it on pixels and empty pleasure. What happens next? What occurs within the temple of your body, the landscape of your mind, the frequency of your spirit, when you cease the endless cycle of depletion and begin to accumulate the power? The journey unfolds in stages, each one a death and rebirth, each one revealing new layers of your potential. In the first 15 days, you enter what the ancient texts call the Valley of Shadows. This is where most men fail, because this is where you come face to face with your conditioning, your addictions, your weaknesses. Your body, accustomed to the regular flood of prolactin and dopamine from ejaculation, begins to revolt. You feel the agitation, the restlessness, the voice in your head that whispers 1,000 justifications for just one more time. This is not merely physical craving. This is your shadow self fighting for survival. Every compulsion, every pattern, every unconscious program that has been running your life rises to the surface to be witnessed. You realize, perhaps for the first time, how much of your behavior has been controlled by this cycle, how many hours lost, how many creative impulses ignored, how many moments of potential brilliance traded for seconds of empty release. But if you persist, if you breathe through the discomfort and refuse to surrender, something miraculous begins to happen around day 10 to 15. The fog starts to lift. The mental clarity that arrives feels like opening curtains in a dark room. Your thoughts become sharper, your senses more acute, colors appear more vivid, conversations become more engaging, ideas flow with less resistance. This is not imagination, this is biochemistry. When you retain, testosterone levels begin to stabilize at higher baselines, dopamine receptors start to heal from overstimulation, and your nervous system begins to recalibrate it to a more powerful frequency. You are no longer leaking vitality, you are beginning to accumulate it. The day 15 you notice changes in how others perceive you. There is a subtle shift in social dynamics that you cannot quite explain but definitely feel. People hold eye contact longer. Conversations flow more naturally. There is a gravitational pull to your presence that was not there before. This is not arrogance or imagination. This is the magnetic effect of retained sexual energy. The ancient Taoists taught that sexual essence, when preserved, radiates outward as an invisible field that others unconsciously respond to. Napoleon Hill called it sex energy, the most powerful of all human motivators. Modern science might call it pheromones, confidence, or charisma, but the mechanism is the same. You are operating at a higher voltage, and the world can feel it. This is the warrior beginning to remember his power. The king is starting to reclaim his throne, but the journey has only begun. Between day 15 and day 60, you enter the crucible, the fire that either forges you into steel or reduces you to ash. This is the phase where the energy you have been accumulating becomes almost overwhelming. You feel it coursing through your body like electricity seeking a ground. Your sexual thoughts become more frequent, more intense, more demanding. This is the test. This is where boys turn back and men press forward. Because here is where you must make the conscious choice every single day to channel this power rather than discharge it. This is where the practice of transmutation becomes real and tangible. When the energy rises, you do not suppress it, you redirect it. You take that fire and you pour it into your work, your training, your creative projects, your business, your purpose. You feel the urge and you write, you lift weights, you build, you create, you produce. The energy does not disappear, it transforms. The sexual impulse becomes creative impulse, becomes productive impulse, becomes the fuel for focused action. During this phase, the physical transformations become undeniable. Your body composition begins to shift even if your diet remains the same. Muscle definition improves, recovery from workouts accelerates, physical strength increases. This is because testosterone and human growth hormone levels reach optimal ranges when sexual energy is preserved rather than depleted. Your voice deepens slightly, carrying more resonance and authority. Your facial structure appears more defined as water retention decreases and inflammation subsides. You sleep more deeply but require fewer hours. Your immune system strengthens. You notice you rarely get sick. These are not coincidences. They are the natural results of no longer subjecting your body to the hormonal roller coaster of frequent ejaculation. Every time a man releases, his body enters a refractory period where prolactin floods the system, dopamine crashes, and the organism shifts into a state of depletion and recovery. By eliminating this cycle, you eliminate the constant drain on your biological resources. You become a reservoir instead of a leaking bucket. But the most profound changes during the 60-day window occur in the invisible realms of consciousness and energy. Your meditation practice, if you have one, becomes exponentially more powerful. Your ability to visualize, to hold clear mental images of your goals and desires, sharpens dramatically. This is precisely what Napoleon Hill was teaching when he spoke of transmutation. Sexual energy, when not released physically, naturally rises into the creative and intellectual centers of the brain. You begin to think with clarity and power that you have not experienced since childhood. Solutions to problems appear spontaneously. Creative ideas arrive fully formed. Your intuition, that quiet voice of inner knowing, speaks louder and clearer. You are not becoming someone new. You are becoming who you always were beneath the fog of constant depletion. And here, right at this point in your journey of transformation, I must tell you something important. If what you are hearing resonates with the deepest part of your being, if you feel that electricity of recognition running through your spine, if you sense that this information could be the key that unlocks everything you have been searching for, then I invite you to make a commitment to yourself right now. Subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell, not because I need your subscription, but because you need a constant reminder of these truths. You need allies on this path. You need reinforcement when your resolve weakens. You need to surround yourself with content that elevates rather than degrades, that empowers rather than enslaves. This channel exists as a lighthouse for men who have chosen to walk the path of transmutation, sovereignty, and power. Every video is designed to fortify your mind, strengthen your will, and remind you of the giant that lives within your skin. Do not let the algorithm decide your destiny. Make the conscious choice to program your mind with truth instead of distraction. Click that button now, not tomorrow, not later, but right now while the fire of inspiration still burns hot within you. This is your first act of transmutation, turning the impulse of this moment into a commitment to your future self. Now, as you cross the threshold of day 60 and move toward the legendary milestone of 180 days, you enter territory that few modern men have ever experienced. This is the realm of the adept, the initiate, the one who has proven through sustained discipline that he is worthy of wielding true power. If the first 60 days were about healing, recalibrating, and accumulating energy, the period from 60 to 180 days is about channeling that energy into manifestation and experiencing states of consciousness that most people dismiss as fantasy or exaggeration. But those who have walked this path know differently. They know that what awaits beyond the 60-day mark is not incremental improvement, but quantum leaps in capability, magnetism, and creative power. By day 90, something extraordinary happens to your relationship with fear. The anxieties that once paralyzed you, the social fears that kept you small, the existential dread that woke you at 3 in the morning, all of these begin to dissolve, not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have changed. When sexual energy is preserved and transmuted over extended periods, it fortifies the nervous system in ways that make you almost impervious to the emotional turbulence that rocks most men. You develop what the ancient Stoics call equanimity, an unshakable center, a core of steel wrapped in compassion. This is not numbness or disconnection, quite the opposite. You feel everything more intensely, but you are not controlled by what you feel. You have become the mountain that watches the storm, rather than the leaf blown by every wind. Your relationship with work and productivity undergoes a complete metamorphosis. Where once you had to force yourself to focus, to drag yourself through tasks with willpower and coffee, you now find that concentration comes naturally, even effortlessly. You can hold complex problems in your mind for hours without fatigue. Your capacity for deep work, for entering flow states where time disappears and genius emerges, expands dramatically. This is the phenomenon that Napoleon Hill observed in every great achiever. He studied the ability to concentrate sexual energy into sustained mental effort, to channel the fire of desire into the laser of focus intention. The successful man does not have less sexual energy than others. He has learned to direct it toward his definite chief aim, instead of scattering it in momentary pleasures. This is the secret that built empires, that created masterpieces, that changed the course of human history. Around day 120, those who have remained faithful to the practice report experiences that border on the mystical. Dreams become vivid, symbolic, prophetic. Synchronicities multiply to the point where you can no longer dismiss them as coincidence. You think of someone, and they call. You need a specific piece of information, and it appears. Opportunities manifest with strange precision. Some may call this luck, others call it manifestation. But the mechanism is the same. You have raised your vibrational frequency to a level where you are broadcasting a powerful signal into the quantum field, and reality is responding. Your desires, when coupled with this concentrated life force, begin to materialize in the physical world with shocking speed and accuracy. This is not magic. This is an energetic cause and effect. This is what happens when you stop bleeding power and start building it. This is what happens when you stop bleeding power and start building it. The physical presence you emanated by this stage becomes unmistakable and undeniable. You walk into a room and people notice, not because you are trying to be noticed, but because the field of energy you carry has expanded to the point where it affects the seed of energy you carry, has expanded to the point where it affects the space around you. Your eyes carry a depth and intensity that makes others uncomfortable to hold your gaze for too long. Your handshake communicates power. Your silence speaks louder than most people's words. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of the awakened man, the one who has activated his inner fire, his kundalini, his chi. The terminology varies across cultures, but the experience is universal. There is a coiled serpent of creative power at the base of your spine, and retention with proper transmutation causes it to rise, activating dormant capacities and unlocking higher states of being. But let me be crystal clear about something that must be understood if you are to succeed on this path. Retention alone is not transmutation. Simply abstaining from release while continuing to marinate in sexual thoughts, to consume pornography, to fantasize endlessly, is not transmutation, it is repression. And repression always leads to explosion, neurosis, or worse. True transmutation requires you to take that sexual energy and actively direct it elsewhere. When you feel the energy building, you channel it, you exercise intensely, you create art, you build your business, you engage in deep work, you serve others, you meditate, you pray, you write, you think, you strategize. You take the raw force of libido and you transform it into focused will, into productive action, into love for your purpose. This is the alchemical process. This is the difference between the man who fails after 2 weeks in a miserable state of white-knuckle resistance and the man who reaches 180 days, feeling more alive, more powerful, and more purposeful than ever before. As you approach the 180-day mark, you realize that what began as an experiment or a challenge has become a way of life. You no longer count the days because you have transcended the need to count. Retention is no longer a discipline you impose upon yourself. It has become the natural expression of who you are. You have fundamentally rewired your relationship with pleasure, with desire, with power. You understand now that the greatest pleasure is not found in the moment of release, but in the sustained experience of accumulated power. You have tasted what it means to be truly alive, truly potent, truly sovereign, and nothing could convince you to return to the prison of compulsion and depletion. The physical transformation by this stage is total. Your body has optimized itself to a degree that seems almost superhuman by modern standards. Hormonal balance, neurotransmitter function, cellular regeneration, immune response, metabolic efficiency. All of these systems operate at peak performance when not constantly disrupted by the ejaculation cycle. You look younger, you feel stronger, you radiate health. But more importantly, you have broken the chains. You are no longer controlled by your body, you control it. You are no longer a slave to the impulse, you are the master of the energy. And this mastery in one area of life creates mastery in all areas. The discipline you developed in retaining and transmuting your sexual energy bleeds into every other domain. Your finances improve because you have developed the patience to delay gratification. Your relationships deepen because you have learned to connect from a place of fullness rather than need. Your spiritual practice accelerates because you have awakened the serpent fire that all mystical traditions point toward. But perhaps the most profound realization that arrives at this stage of the journey is this: the energy you have been working with, the force you have been learning to transmute, is not merely sexual energy. It is life energy. It is life energy. It is creative energy. It is the same power that beats your heart, that grows your hair, that heals your wounds, that generates your thoughts. Sex is simply one expression of this universal force, and it happens to be the most concentrated and powerful expression available to human beings. When you master sexual energy, you master life energy. When you learn to direct sexual energy, you learn to direct all energy. This is why every spiritual tradition, from Tantra to Taoism, from Christian mysticism to Hermetic alchemy, has encoded teachings about sexual transmutation at their core. This is the key. that unlocks all doors. This is the philosopher's stone that turns lead into gold. And so we arrive at the ultimate question, the question that determines whether you will remain as you are or undergo the metamorphosis into what you could become. Will you continue to dissipate the most powerful force you possess in moments of unconscious release? Or will you harness it, cultivate it, and direct it toward the manifestation of your highest vision? Will you remain enslaved to algorithms designed to keep you weak, distracted, and depleted, or will you reclaim your sovereignty and build the life you were meant to live? The life you were meant to live. The choice is yours, as it has always been. But understand this, no one is coming to save you. No PID, no program, no guru can do this work for you. The power you seek is already within you, coiled at the base of your spine, waiting for you to be courageous enough to awaken it. 15 days will show you that change is possible, that the fog can lift, that you are stronger than your impulses. 60 days will show you that transformation is real, that your biology responds to your choices, that you can become magnetic and powerful. 180 days will show you that you are capable of walking through fire and emerging as gold, that mastery is not a fantasy, but a destination reached through sustained discipline and conscious transmutation. But the journey does not end at 180 days. That is merely the moment when you graduate from a student to practitioner, when retention becomes not something you do, but something you are. The world does not need more men who are comfortable, complacent, and controlled. The world needs men who are awake, alive, and dangerous in the most sacred sense of that word. Dangerous to the systems that profit from your weakness, dangerous to the narratives that keep you small, dangerous to the forces that want you distracted and depleted. The man who has mastered his sexual energy is dangerous because he cannot be bought, he cannot be manipulated, he cannot be controlled. He has found the source of power within himself, and nothing external can diminish or extinguish it. So begin today, not tomorrow, not next week, not after this one last time. Begin right now. Make the decision that from this moment forward, you will no longer waste your life force on empty pleasure. You will no longer trade your power for pixels. You will no longer be a slave to impulse. You will become the alchemist of your own existence, transmuting the base metal of animal desire into the gold of creative genius, purposeful action, and sovereign power. The first 15 days will be uncomfortable. The 60-day mark will test your resolve. The 180-day milestone will reveal who you truly are. But on the other side of this journey waits a version of yourself that you can barely imagine him from where you stand now. A man who moves through the world with unshakable confidence, magnetic presence, creative fire, and the quiet, knowing that he has conquered the one opponent that defeats most men, himself. This is not about perfection, it is about direction. This is not about detail. This is not about denial, it is about transmutation. This is not about becoming something you are not. It is about becoming everything you already are beneath the layers of conditioning, addiction, and fear. The serpent fire is awakening within you even as you read these words. The question is whether you will give it permission to rise, to transform you, to burn away everything that is not truly you, and forge in its place the warrior, the creator, the sovereign you were always meant to be. The path is laid before you. The power is waiting within you. All that remains is your decision to walk through the fire and claim your metamorphosis. Choose now, choose wisely, and may the force that created galaxies and split atoms rise within you and carry you home to your true self. the self that was never broken, never weak, never lost, only sleeping, waiting for this exact moment to awaken and remember its power.